Welcome to episode 3 of my enrolled agent career. So, in the past two episodes, I talked about what is an enrolled agent and my personal story of how I became an enrolled agent. Special thank you to Deacon Johnson. But in today's episode, I want to talk about the main hurdle, the first hurdle and barrier that you will encounter to becoming an enrolled agent, and that is the special enrollment exam. Now, the special enrollment exam is more commonly known as the EA exam or the enrolled agent exam, right? Because you were going through special enrollment to become an enrolled agent to represent taxpayers before the IRS. So, I know some people who are really, really good at preparing taxes. I know people that are really good at understanding tax strategies. But the truth of the matter is, they aren't good standardized test takers. So, what I'm going to do in this episode is talk about the exam. And then in episode 4, I'm going to be talking about how I studied for the exam and also share some tips that may help you study as well. Now, I understand that everybody watching the podcast may not be ready to take the exam. Maybe you already passed the exam. If you've already passed the exam, thank you so much for tuning into this episode. But I'm pretty sure you still know a person or some people that are struggling with the exam. Would you do me a favor and share this episode with them? Now, if you're new here, you may think that I have absolutely no right to be asking you a favor. So let me introduce myself and maybe that'll give me a little bit of a right. My name is Timalyn Bowens, and I am America's favorite EA. The whole reason I created this podcast is to share my personal journey being an enrolled agent and to also highlight the journeys of other people that I admire who are enrolled agents to help you along in your journey as an EA. You'll be able to hear from people who have traditional backgrounds, such as myself. You'll hear from people who don't have college degrees. You'll hear from people who work for the government instead of having their own firm. The reason I want to highlight these is just so you know all of the limitless possibilities there are for you when you become an enrolled agent. Okay. But before we get there, you have to pass the EA exam. So, with the special enrollment exam, there are three parts. And charge my head, not my heart. In other videos, I may have said there are 100 multiple choice questions. There are actually 85 multiple choice questions on each exam. Okay, so I wouldn't recommend sitting for all three parts in one day or even 2 days, but I know for some of my aspiring enrolled agents who are overseas, you may not have that option because the testing window is smaller. So, with the exam, you are able to take it at a Prometric testing center from May 1st until February 28th. So, right now, we're in 2025. So, the material that's going to be on the exam is going to be from the 2024 tax season. So, you're looking at 2024 tax law. Okay. Now, with SEE 1, so Special Enrollment Exam 1, we're looking at individual taxation. Okay. Then, when we look at SEE 2, we're looking at businesses. And then, when we get to SEE 3, we're looking at ethics, because remember, only enrolled agents, tax attorneys, and CPAs can represent clients before the IRS, which automatically puts you up at a higher standard. And it also means that the IRS can actually get you with penalties and fines as well, because we not only have an ethical duty to the taxpayer, but the Office of Professional Responsibility with the IRS is there to make sure that we are not just to the standard, but above the standard when it comes to protecting taxpayers. Okay. And you also will have the continuing education requirement, and all of that's going to be enforced by the Office of Professional Responsibility. But back to the exam, because we got to pass the exam first, right? So I've heard a lot of people say that part two is the hardest. I will say when you hear that, take it with a grain of salt. And the reason being, it was the easiest for me. But here's why. Why I believe anyway. I worked 3 seasons in a public accounting firm where I got to put my hands on a lot of different things, and I had knowledge in different areas that a lot of my fellow EAs don't. Now, no shade, no tea towards them, but having that experience and then also taking into consideration that I have a business school background and I have an accounting background, the things from the business section made sense. So, knowing how to do a balance sheet, understanding retained earnings, all of that made sense because I had done Schedule L's, which is the balance sheet on a business tax return. I knew how income statements were supposed to work. So, if you do have that accounting background, don't be afraid of part two. All right. Now, people will ask me, like, okay, what type of study material should I use? I'm going to talk about that more in next episode. You do have free resources available to you that let you know what's going to be covered on the exam. You can actually find this on the Prometric website. And if you're not already, if you're listening to this episode on May 18th, in 2 nights, May 20th, on my YouTube channel, which is at America's Fave EA, I will actually be going to the Prometric website and going through the different things that they have listed that will be on the EA exam in each part. Not only do they tell you what types of questions and what material sections you should study, it also lets you know how many um, questions of the exam will be from the material that they have listed. So that gives you the opportunity to see, okay, I really need to brush up on this, or hey, I'm probably good here because I understand that. Now, if you have no accounting background at all, that's still okay. If you have no tax experience at all, that's still okay. You may have to study a little bit harder, but you can do it, right? So, with each exam, we have the 85 questions. They're all multiple choice, and you have to have a score of 105. Okay. Now the test is electronic. So when you actually submit everything, by the time you walk out of the room, the proctor of the test will know whether you've passed or failed. Right. So, with that being said, we have 85 questions. You need a score of 105. I highly, highly, highly encourage you to tune into the video on YouTube on Tuesday, May 20th, because you're going to want your pen and paper or either to follow along on your computer so you can have that somewhat of a cheat sheet from the Prometric website that lets you know, okay, for individuals, we have preliminary work. Preliminary work is the information that you need to get from a taxpayer before preparing their return. So you need to understand filing status, you need to understand about dependents, credits, itemized deductions. Okay, but again, remember, you already know that there are going to be 85 multiple choice questions. On the cheat sheet, it's going to say there are going to be 17 from this area, 10 from this area. So you don't want to overlook those free resources that you do have. Okay. So you don't have to take the exam in any type of order. You could take number three first, number two, number one, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 3, however you want to do it. I would recommend that you take the one that you feel the strongest about first, right? Boost that confidence, get that one over with. And once you pass all 3 parts of the exam, you will go through a suitability check. right? So, somewhat of a background check. You have to also be in tax compliance. Now, check this out. Yes, as an enrolled agent, you can represent taxpayers before the IRS. But if you have your own problem with the IRS, it doesn't necessarily have to stop you from becoming an enrolled agent. You can set up your own payment arrangement with the IRS to get into compliance and still apply for enrollment to practice before the IRS. That will be the final part, which is done with Form 23. Now, YouTube has a lot of resources, right? So, if you're interested just in seeing what that application looks like, I do have a video on my YouTube channel that is called IRS Form 23. Just so you know what kind of questions they ask. There is a fee, right? Make sure you understand what you're signing and submitting online before you just fill it all out and check the button, check the box and submit, right? But another question that people ask about the special enrollment exam is it difficult? I personally am a good standardized test taker. I did not find it difficult. With that being said, as well, though, remember I worked 3 seasons in public accounting. I had a couple of seasons in my own firm under my belt. In addition to that, I am a tax nerd and tax law lover. Think about it. I write tax articles, I teach tax classes. So the material was exciting to me, right? I was able to pass all 3 parts on the first try, but I also gave myself enough time to study adequately. Okay. Now, I know people who have said they passed all 3 parts within 6 weeks. Kudos to them. It's not something that I would personally recommend, though, right? And I want you to keep in mind that being an enrolled agent, the National Association of Enrolled Agents has labeled us as America's tax experts. But just because you've passed the exam, you don't have to feel like you know everything. The exam is testing your tax competency, but also testing your ability to do research and to find the answer. Once you pass the exam, even when you're done with part 3 that covers tax representation a little bit, you still won't know how to represent taxpayers before the IRS. That's where different programs, mentorship, working under somebody comes in. So, shameless plug, I'm going to invite you right now to join my email list at www.americasfavoriteea.com. And when you're ready to start getting clients in your EA firm, you're ready to start getting tax prep clients and representation, because I think all enrolled agents should do representation. The doors of my mentorship program are open. But again, if you're not ready yet, you should still join the email list. There is also a free community, How to Start an Enrolled Agent Firm, where I provide different resources, different tips for getting clients. Sometimes I write articles about studying for the EA exam. We would love to have you in that community. And I truly do believe that it will help you with passing the EA exam. I hope you found this episode helpful. Remember, next episode, I'm going to talk more specifically about how to study for the exam, as well as share some of my experience with studying and the EA review system that I use to study and pass the exam on the first try. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye now.